Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Wish Infinite. In this video of Playwright with TypeScript series, I'm going to talk about GET calls for the API testing. Here we would be checking that how to perform GET call with the Postman tool for the manual testing and with the Playwright for the automation testing. We would be learning that how to pass the base URL and header with this GET call and how to perform different assertions onto the response received from the GET call. And all this we would be looking with the help of different examples. So let's start with the theoretical part. Into my previous video related to the introduction of API, we have talked that what are the APIs, what are the different component of the APIs. And if you have not watched this particular video, I would highly recommend you to go through this video because before performing the API testing, you should have knowledge of all these concepts of the API. I will provide link of this particular video into the description, or you can click onto this I button at top right corner to access that particular video. Now let's continue. So now first question is that why API testing is required. API testing is crucial for ensuring the smooth functioning and overall quality of the web applications that rely on the application programming interfaces. We can also call it as the APIs. It checks if the API delivers the correct data in the expected format when provided with the valid inputs. API testing also involves invalid inputs to ensure the API handles errors gracefully and returns the appropriate messages. Now coming on to the GET call. GET call in an API is a specific type of HTTP request method used to retrieve data from a server. When you make a GET call, you are essentially asking the server for the information. The server responds by sending back the requested data into the response body. The data format can vary depending on the API, but common formats includes JSON, which is JavaScript object notation, and XML, which is extensible markup language. So in short, GET call is a HTTP request method which is used to retrieve information from the server into the JSON or XML format. So to perform the GET call, components which we would be using would be the base URL, resource, and the query or the path parameter. These parameters are optional as we discussed into the previous video also. And in some cases, header may also be required. So we would be looking at how we can pass that. Now let's see the practical example that how to perform this GET call. And to perform the GET call for the manual testing, we would be using the Postman tool. I have already installed the Postman tool for my machine. If you do not have this Postman tool, you can go through this particular link and install the Postman tool for the specific OS which you have. It may be Windows, Mac OS, or the Linux. You can also use the web version of the Postman tool. For this video, we would be using the Windows version. And once you install this Postman tool and complete the setup, you would be able to see this type of stream. And here we can perform the GET call. So as we saw that GET call is the HTTP method. So here into the Postman tool, we have option to perform the GET call. Here you can click onto this new, and here you would be able to see the different option. We would be clicking onto this HTTP. And here we would be able to see the different sections. From this drop down, you can select different HTTP methods. For now, we would be clicking onto this GET. Here you can put your base URL with the resources. From this params tab, we can provide different query parameters. If any authorization would be required, we would be providing it here. From here, we can pass the different request headers. Here we need to pass the body. Usually we would be selecting this body as the raw with type as JSON. And once you perform this GET call, you would be able to see this response here. So for this particular video, I'm going to use this particular website where we are having the API, which we can use. So this is restful-booker.herokuapp.com website. And here you would be able to see different HTTP calls, which we can use for our practice. So in your project, if you are going to perform the API testing, so in that case, you will need different informations like what is the base URL, what is the resource name, what are the different path parameters or query parameters, what is the header we need to pass, what is the body which we need to pass. So all these information you may be getting in form of different plain document where all these information would be mentioned. And in some projects, you would also be able to see this curl command. And this curl command is also helpful once we perform the API testing. I will show you that what is the use of this. And in some cases, there may be the projects where you are not getting any document. And in that case, you'll have to collect all these informations from your developers. So it depends, right? Project to project, how you're getting the information related to the APIs. And on basis of that information, you will have to perform the API testing. So here into the site, if you will see, they have provided this particular API, which returns the IDs of all the bookings that exist within the API. And here they have given us the base URL with the resource. What is the type of this API call? What are all the different parameters which can be passed? What type of response we would be getting? If there would be any header, it would be written like this. And we have also got this curl command. So now let's see how to perform this GET call. So for this, I will copy this base URL, which is restful-booker.herokuapp.com. And with this, we are having this booking as the resource. So to perform the get call, you can select get here, and then you need to provide that URL which we have copied. So this is the base URL and this is the resource. And here, if you will see, by using this base URL and the resource, we would be able to perform this get call. Apart from that, there is no such information is required. Now, to perform the get call, you need to simply click onto the send button. And by this, you would be able to retrieve all the booking IDs. Okay, so click onto the send. And here into this response section, you would be able to see all the booking IDs, right? So under the body, it is appearing into the JSON format. Apart from that, here we are having different tabs also like cookies. For this, we have not received any cookies. Here we have information related to the headers of the response. And here we would be able to see the test result. For now, we have not provided any of the checks. So that's why we have not received any test results. Here, if you will go to this script tab, so for now, you can provide the basic assertions also. And that you would be able to see. So here you can put this status code snippet, right? So click onto this status code is 200. So here you would be able to see the code written like this, where this PM stands for Postman dot test. So this is our test, right? Here we have given the title. If you will compare it with the Playwright also, so here you would be able to see that test is here, this title is here, and then we have this function, right? Where we are mentioning this Postman response to have status as 200, right? Because once we perform this get call, and if everything is okay, we would be getting this 200 as the status code. So that's what we are checking through this particular snippet, right? You can add some more snippets from here, and you would be able to see that result into this test result section. Now let me perform this get call again. So once you click onto the send, you would be able to see that test result also, that status code is 200, which is parsed, right? And here into this section also, you would be able to see that what is the status code which we have received, which is 200. Okay, what is the time which it took, what is the size of this particular response, and you can save this particular request for your future use also. So once you click onto the save, you can give any request name here, and you can provide the collection name. So this collection name is kind of folder in which our request will get saved. Okay, so I'm saving it into the new collection only. Here you can rename this collection name also. Okay, here let's give it like the API testing. So now here we have seen that how to perform basic get call through the Postman for the manual testing. Now let's see how we can perform the same get call with the help of Playwright tool. And for that, let me open the VS Code. And here I have already created one test script file inside this tests folder, where I have imported the test from the Playwright test module and created this test block with the title API testing get practice 1 with the second argument as the anonymous function. Now, till now, into this Playwright series, we have used this page fixture to perform the UI testing. And to perform the API testing, similarly, we are going to use the request fixture. So to use the request fixture, what you need to do, you need to go to this anonymous function, and inside this parenthesis, you need to provide the curly braces, and here you need to use this request fixture. And by using this request fixture, we can use this get method. So here this request dot get. And with this get method, we would be passing the base URL and the resource to perform this get call, which we have just checked here, right? So here you can copy the same URL, and inside this get method, you can provide that particular base URL with the resource, right? So after the base URL, we have given this / and then the resource name. And as this get method, if you will mouse over on it, so here you would be able to see this get method is returning as the promise. So for that, we need to use the await keyword here. So by using this, you would be able to perform the get call, which we performed here in call. So here, see, we selected this get from this drop down, and then we have given this URL. And the same thing we are doing into the Playwright with the help of this request fixture, where we are using this get method and passing the base URL with the resource here. And let's save this response into one constant. So here you need to give this const, and then you can give any name. Here I am giving this response1, resp1. And for now, let's print this particular response, which we are receiving into this variable. So here we are simply using the console log for now, console.log. And here we can simply pass this response1 dot. And here we need to use this JSON method so that we would be able to see our response into the JSON format. And here, if you will mouse over onto this JSON method which we have used, so here you would be able to see this method is returning as the promise. So for that, we need to use this await here, right? Now let's execute the script. And once we execute the script, we would be able to see the response. So see, here we are able to see all the booking IDs from this response. So like this, we can perform the basic get call through the Playwright tool. So here, if you will see, I have passed this base URL directly with this HTTP method. In this case, we have used this get HTTP method. In upcoming videos, we would also be using post, put, delete methods also. So this is one of the way where we can pass the base URL, right, directly into the HTTP method. But apart from that, there are also different ways through which we can provide this base URL. So now let's look into those ways, right, through which we can pass the base URL. So here, as I've passed this base URL directly with the HTTP method, here I've used this get method. It may be post, put, delete method also, any method. It can be there, and you can pass this base URL directly within the method. But here, let's say you have different HTTP calls within this test only. And for all of the tests, same base URL is required. So if you give this base URL with each HTTP call, so it is going to be the redundancy, right? So rather than passing it within the HTTP method, we can use the context also to pass it onto the test level. So for now, let me create this second test for the practice purpose. Okay, here I will give this name as API testing get practice 2. And here, as we are going to use the new context, so for that we would not be requiring this fixture. So this fixture is of type API requests context. Okay, for now we are not going to use it, but on place of it, we are going to import the request from this Playwright test module. And here, if you will mouse over onto this request, so this request is of API request type, right? And our fixture was of type API request context. So both of these requests are different. Here, this is of type API request, and this fixture is of type API request context. So here, by using this request, which we have just imported, here I'm going to use it into the second test. So here you need to provide this request dot, and then we are going to use this new context method. And after that, we need to put the parenthesis. And within the parenthesis, we are going to pass the base URL. Okay. So here I've used the same get call, right? And here I'm just console logging the response like the previous test. But here, rather than passing this base URL with the HTTP method only, I would be removing it from here. And within the new context, I would be providing the curly braces. And within the curly braces, we need to pass the key value pair. So base URL would be our key, and its value is going to be our base URL string, right? So within the quotes, you can put that base URL. And now we can save this new context information. So here we can write this const and then req context, any name you can give, right? Equals to. And then we are going to use this req context to perform different HTTP calls, right? So here, if you will mouse over onto this new context and scroll to the little bit down, you would be able to see this request.newContext is returning us this API request context, right? And same thing, if you will mouse over onto this picture, this was also of type this API request context, right? So now copy this req context and you can replace it with this request. So into the background, this request fixture also does the same thing, but here we are going one step back and we are using this new context where we are providing this base URL within this new context, and then we are using response of it to perform different HTTP methods. And one more thing, once you will mouse over onto this new context, you would be able to see this new context is going to return us the promise. So you will have to use this await keyword also, right? Otherwise you would be able to see this error, right? So here let's put await request.newContext, right, with the base URL, and then we are using its response to perform different HTTP method. And now, as we have provided base URL by using this new context, so within this test, you can perform different HTTP methods, right? And in that case, you will not have to pass this base URL with each HTTP method. Now, once I execute the second test, so we would be getting the same response of all the booking IDs. So now here, as we have passed this base URL with the help of new context under this test only, so you would be able to use this base URL only for the HTTP methods within this test only. But let's say your base URL is common for all the test blocks where we are going to perform different HTTP methods. So in that case, we can use the third way where rather than passing this base URL within the test block with the help of this new context, we would be making it applicable for all the tests. And now here to provide this base URL for all the tests for the specific test script file, we are going to use this before all hook, right? So here we can write this test dot before all parenthesis. Here you can provide this title also, it is optional. So here let's put the title like before all the test, any title you can put, and then comma, and then we are going to use this anonymous function. So async parenthesis equals to greater than, and then the curly braces. And within these curly braces, now we are going to provide the base URL with the help of this new context only. So the same thing you need to write. You are going to use this request which we have imported from the Playwright test module. So request dot new context, right? Same new context method we are going to use, okay? And then the parenthesis, and then within the curly braces, inside these parentheses, we are going to provide the base URL as the key and its value as this URL, right? So this is our base URL. So as the string, we need to provide it here. And as this new context is going to return us the promise, so for that, we are going to use this await here. And as we need to use this new context response, so for that, we can save it inside this variable. So let's define one variable with the help of this let req context2. Okay, any name you can give. I'm just giving it like this. And then you can use this same context equals to the response of this new context method, right? And then we are going to use this req context into our tests where we want to use this base URL, right? So for that, let me just copy this first test, right? And here, rather than using this base URL, right, which was there into the HTTP method, so I'm removing it. And then let's remove this fixture also. We are not using this particular request fixture, right? And here we are going to use this request context 2. So let's copy and replace it with this request. And let's give the title as practice 3. So now our test is ready. And this test and all other tests where we use this request context 2 are going to use this base URL which we have provided here inside the before all hook. So once you execute this script, you would be able to see the same booking ID responses we will get. So see, we have got the booking IDs. So now this was the third way where we were able to provide this base URL with the help of this new context directly into the before all, which would be applicable for all the tests of that particular test script file where we use this new request context, right? Now there may be one more case where for your whole project you want to use the same base URL. So in that case, rather than providing it through the way 1 or way 2 or way 3, we are going to use the fourth way where we would be using this playwright config.ts file. So here you can open this file, and here once you will come to this define config, so inside this you would be able to see this use as the key, right? And its value is the object where we provide different key value pair related to the screenshot, traces, videos, right? So you need to go there, and here you need to provide one more key which would be the base URL, and its value is going to be the string of the base URL. So for now our base URL is the same, right? So here let me copy this one, and then I can provide it here as the string. And don't forget to put the comma, otherwise you will see error for the next key value pair. And for this, let's create one more test, right? So I'm keeping different tests for your further reference, right? So that you will not get confused. Rather than making the changes into the single test only, I'm creating separate test, right? So let's give the title as practice 4. And here we are going to use the same request fixture only, right? So here let's use this request fixture, and then we are going to give the same await request dot get. And here we will not pass the complete base URL like this, but we would be directly using the resource. And automatically, as we have provided this base URL into the playwright config file, we would be able to get that base URL here, and we would be able to see the same response for all the booking IDs, right? Like this. So now let me execute this particular test again. So see, we are able to see all the booking IDs. So just to give you the quick recap, we have provided the base URL directly into the HTTP method. If it is different for each HTTP method, you can use this way. If you want to make the base URL common for all the calls within the test, so for that, you can use this new context within the test by providing it like this. If you want to make it common for all the tests inside the test script file, so in that case, you can use this new context to provide the base URL within the before all like this. And if you want to make this base URL global, which would be applicable for all the test script file within your project, so in that case, you can go to this playwright config file, and then within this define config, you can go to this use key, and inside the object of this use key, you can provide the key as the base URL and its value as the string of the base URL. So it would be applicable for all the test script file within your project. So it depends, right, project to project, how you want to configure. So in the projects, usually we have single base URL, and in that case, You can simply use this playwright.config.ts file to provide the base URL, and it would be applicable for all of your test scripts. But it depends onto the projects to project, how they have provided the base URL, and accordingly, you can use any of the way which we have just discussed. Now, as we have discussed all the ways to provide base URL for our HTTP methods, there is one more thing which we need to provide once we uses the HTTP methods, and that is header. And here also we have 4 different ways to provide header with our HTTP request. Now here, if you will have a look at the site from where we are taking the example of the API, they have provided this section where they have given accept as the header with the value as application/JSON. And this is the header which we need to send with our HTTP request. So here they are telling that the field name is accept and its value is application/JSON. And this accept header as the application/JSON indicate that client or requester expects JSON response from the server. There can be different header fields with the different values. For now, we will take this simple example. So to provide the header, we will discuss all the ways one by one. So first way to provide the header is to directly giving it with the HTTP method. So in this case, we would be providing it with the get method. You can provide it with any of the HTTP methods like post, put, delete. So here to provide the header with this method, after the first argument, you need to put the comma and then you need to put the curly braces. Here you need to pass the key as the headers and its value is going to be the object again, where you are going to provide the different headers. For now, we are just providing the single header where the field name is accept. So from here, we can copy the field name as the key and its value is going to be the application/JSON, right? So as per the document you need to put, you need not to make any changes. So this is the value which I have provided. So here like this, you can provide multiple headers value. After putting the comma, you need to put the key value pair for the related header. So this way, where we are providing the headers with the HTTP method, you would be using when for each HTTP request, your header is changing or you need to pass the different header. So let's say within this test, there are 10 different HTTP requests which we are sending. And for that, we have different headers for each one of them. So in that case, you can use this particular way. Now coming on to the second way, where we can provide header for all of your HTTP requests which are there inside the test. So here we saw that we can pass the base URL like this, and it would be applicable for all the HTTP requests which are there inside the test. So similarly, we can pass the headers also like this. And to pass the headers in this way, what we would be doing? So here we have used this request.new context, right? Where we have imported the request from the Playwright test module. And then we have given this request.new context. And inside this, we have given the base URL, which would be applicable for all the tests. So similarly, what we need to do, we need to provide one more key value pair. So here, after putting the comma, you can give this extra HTTP headers as the key. And then you need to put the colon. And after that, its value is going to be the object again. So here, you need to give it like this. Now, inside this object, you need to again provide the key value pair. And the key is going to be the field name, right? So this is the accept, which they have provided into the document. And then you need to put the colon. And after that, you need to put the value of the header. So in this case, it is application/JSON. And by providing the header like this with the request context, if you use this request context to pass the HTTP method, so in that case, this header would be applicable for all of the requests within this test. Now coming on to the third way, where we can make the header applicable for all the tests inside any test script file. So in that case, we can use this before all, right? So previously we have provided this base URL like this into the before all by using this request.new context where we have given the key value pair for the base URL. Similarly, we can do it for the headers also. And for that, you need to provide the key value pair. So here, you need to give the key as the extra HTTP headers and its value is going to be the object, where again you need to provide the key value pair. So similarly, I can copy the same key value pair which we have provided here. So here the accept is the key and value is the application/JSON. And now if we provide the header like this, so like the base URL which was applicable for all the tests inside this test script file, the header is also going to be applicable for all the tests inside this test script file where we use this request context too, right? So here we have used this request which we have imported from the Playwright test module dot new context, and inside this we have given the object where we have provided key value pair for the base URL, and similarly we have provided the key value pair for the headers also. So the key is extra HTTP headers and its value is the object where again we have provided the different header. So here n number of headers you can provide, and wherever you use this request context to, it would be applicable. So in this test, as we have used this request context to dot get HTTP method, we are using with this request context to, you can use any HTTP method like post, put, delete, patch, and the same header would be applicable for them. Now coming on to the fourth way to provide the header. And in this case, we would be providing headers at the global label. So it would be applicable for all the tested files into your project inside this tests folder, right? So here we need to use this playwright.config.ts file, where inside this define config, we can find this use as the key. And here we need to provide the header inside this object. So like we have provided the base URL, we need to provide the header also. And here the key would be same, the extra HTTP headers, colon, and its value is going to be the object where we are going to provide the key value pair. So here we can provide different headers. So first we need to provide the field name as the key. So for us, the accept was the key and its value was application /JSON. So the same thing you need to use like this. And after putting this key value pair, don't forget to put the comma, otherwise you would be seeing this error into the next key value pair, right? You need to separate it with the comma. And once you provide the header like this, so it is going to be applicable for all of your tested file which are there inside your project. So similarly, this base URL was applicable for all the tested files. This header is also going to be applicable for all of your tested files. And it depends onto the configurations into your project for your APIs. So if they need some common headers, in that case, you can provide it at the global label and can use it for all your tested files. And if you need to provide a specific header, which is applicable for the specific HTTP method, so in that case, you can provide it directly with the HTTP method like this. So accordingly, as per your configuration, you can use any of these ways. Now, as we have learned that how to provide this base URL and the header with your HTTP methods, and it is going to be applicable for all the HTTP methods. So in future, also when you would be using this post, put, delete, right? So there also you can use these ways to pass the headers or the base URLs. Now let's see some more examples related to this get call. So here we have just looked at the example where we are just using the resource with the base URL to fetch all the booking IDs where we have used this example. Now let's see one more example where we are going to use the path parameter just to fetch the specific booking ID informations. So here it is the get method which we need to use, and this is the base URL. And then after this / we have booking as the resource. And again, after the / we need to provide the ID for which we want to fetch the information. Like this, in this example, they have provided 1 as the booking ID, and it will give you the response related to it. So here, if you will scroll down, they have provided this header information which we need to provide. And here, this is the path parameter which we need to provide. You can also call it URL parameter. And this is the response which we are going to get, where we would be able to see the first name, last name, total price, deposit paid, booking date, check-in, check-out, additional needs. Okay, and then we are going to see this success 200 as the response. So now let's first see that how we can pass this get call into the Postman, and the same we would be doing with the help of the Playwright. So now this time I would be using this curl which they have provided into the document. So here go to the Postman, and here as I told, I'm going to use this curl. So here you can click onto this import, and once you click onto the import, here you can see they have provided this placeholder where we can directly pass this curl, raw text, or the URL. So here this time I'm going to pass this curl command directly, and see automatically it has read that curl command, and here it has selected this HTTP method as the get, and they have given this base URL with the resource and the booking ID. So here we saw that once we use this particular get request, we get all the booking IDs. So let's use any one of the booking ID to get the information. So let's use this 2402. So you need to use the valid booking ID. Okay, then only you would be able to fetch the information. So here in place of this one, I'm going to use this 2402 as the booking ID. And now once I send this get request, I am going to get the response related to this particular booking ID. So click on to this send, and see we are able to see the first name, last name, total price, deposit paid, booking dates with the check-in, check-out details, and the additional needs. So this is the response body this is the response header which we are getting. You need not to worry about it. And we have also got this status as 200 OK. So all the details we have received with the response. Now let's see how we can pass the same get call with the Playwright. So here let's create one more test. Let's copy paste this one only, and let's give it as practice 5. And this time I'm going to use this request fixture only. And here I need not to provide the base URL. Why? Because as I have provided this base URL at the global level, so it is going to use this base URL, right? And as we are using this fixture, so this before all is also not going to be applicable here. Why? Because there we have provided this request context value inside this request context too, right? So only those methods are going to be applicable for this particular base URL and the header. But for us, the global header and the global base URL is going to be applicable. And here, as we need to provide the resource as the booking, and after that, we need to provide the booking ID. So let's use the same booking ID, which is 2402. So here after the forward slash, give this booking ID, which is path parameter or the URL parameter, right? And now we would be able to see that response. So here we are console logging that response, right? So here response1.json, right? Here you can save the value inside any variable name, right? For now, I'm using the same response inside this test also. And once you run this test, you would be able to see that particular response. So see, we have got the response with this body. So till now, we have seen the example related to the base URL with the resource as well as the path parameter. Now let's see one example where we are also going to use the query parameter. So here, once you go to this site and once you see this example 2, so here see they have used this query parameter where they are passing the first name and the last name to get this particular booking details only. Here let's use this curl command again, and the same command you can paste inside this import. So click onto the import and paste that curl command, and here you would be able to see this get HTTP method is appearing here, and inside this final endpoint we have this base URL. Then we have the resource as the booking, and this time we are not providing any path parameter, but we are going to provide the query parameter. And the syntax we have already discussed into the previous video. So to provide the query parameter, you need to provide this question mark. Then you need to give the key and its value, right? So here the first name is the key and its value is going to be any valid name. So into the previous request, we have fetched this booking 2402, right? So here let's use this John as the first name and last name as this Smith. So you need to provide the valid first name and last name. Here also into the Postman, if you will see, there is this params tab, right, where we can provide the query parameters. So see, here we are providing the key name as the first name and its value as the John and last name as the Smith. So here if you will change any value, it is going to change into this endpoint also, right? For now, let's use the correct name. And now once you click onto the send, we would be able to see the booking IDs related to this particular endpoint where the first name is John and last name is Smith. So we have these many booking IDs where this first name and last name is applicable, right? So these are just the examples, right? In your case, let's say this is unique first name and last name. So in that case, you would be able to see only one booking ID. And here we are also able to see this status as 200. Okay. Let's say if I pass this wrong last name, okay, and send this one. So see, we are not getting any response. So it is blank, right? So they do not have booking ID with the last name as Smith 1. So let's pass the correct first name and the last name. Now let's see the same example that how we can pass this get call with the query parameters into the Playwright. So for that, here into the VS Code, let me copy this test again. And now here I will provide the title as API testing get practice 6. And here as we are providing the base URL at the global level with this playwright.config.ts file. So that we need not to provide with this get method. And then we have put this / booking as the resource. And to provide the query parameters, there are two different ways. One way is that we can directly pass it with the final endpoint. So copy this particular part of the query parameter and then provide it after this booking, which is the resource. And these are two different query parameters. And now once you hit enter, you would be able to see all the booking IDs related to this first name and last name. And there is one more second way. So let me show you that also. For that, I will again create one more test. I'm creating different tests so that it would be easy for you to practice once you get the same code from the GitHub. So here let's provide this practice 7 as the title. And for now, I'm just going to keep this resource here, okay, after the base URL /booking as the resource. And then you need to put the comma after this first argument, and then you need to provide this object where you would be providing the query parameter. And to pass the query parameter, you need to pass the key value pair. So here the key would be the params. So here type this params : and its value is again going to be the object where you need to provide your query parameters. So to provide the query parameters, you need to put this key. So the key is going to be the first name, and after this key you need to put the colon, and then you need to provide the value of this particular key. So the value is going to be the John. And similarly, you need to provide this last name also. So it depends. Let's say if there are 10 different query parameters, right? So you can provide 10 different query parameters with this key value pair. So let's copy this last name as the key, colon, and its value is going to be the Smith. So here you need to pass this Smith as the string. And now once I execute this particular request, we are going to get the same response which we have got here, right? So let me execute it. And see, we have got all the booking IDs for this particular first name and last name. So it depends, right? If you have only 1 or 2 query parameters, so you can provide it with this endpoint only, but usually it is preferred to provide it separately like this, right? So it would be easy to read also. And here you can provide n number of query parameters, right? It would be readable also. And now we have seen most of the examples that how we can use this get call to pass the HTTP request, and then we can receive the response. So here we saw that we can just pass the resource to get all the booking IDs, right? We also saw that we can provide this path parameter to get the booking details related to the specific ID. Here we have also seen that how we can provide the query parameters, right, into the Postman. We have seen all the example, and with the help of the Playwright also we have seen that how we can provide this get call to receive the response from the server. Now once we send all these requests, so in return we are going to get the response. So for now we just printed that particular response, but when you are doing the automation testing, we also need to provide assertions to validate, right, whatever the response which we are getting is valid or not, because you cannot provide this console.log every time, right? You are not going to validate it manually, but for that you should have some assertions so that you would be able to validate automatically every time. So now let's see some of the assertions which we can provide with our HTTP methods. In this case, our HTTP method is get, right? So now here let's use this particular example where we have provided this booking ID to get the response related to this booking. Okay, so let me copy this test again, and for this we would be providing different assertions. And let's take any new booking ID. Okay, so 61 I am taking. So this is the path parameter. So after the resource, put the / and then the path parameter value. And let's give this title as practice 8. And now let's provide some assertions. So one assertion which we can provide where we can validate this status code which we are receiving. So to give that particular assertion, you need to use this expect, and then you need to provide this response, right? So response 1 in this case, dot, and then we need to use this status, which is going to return us the status code. Okay, and then here you need to use the assertion which is 2b. And now as we have seen that with this HTTP request where we have passed this path parameter, we are going to get the status code as the 200. So now let's put 200 here with 2b. And here as we are getting this error for the expect. Why? Because we have not imported the expect here. So let's import this expect from the Playwright test module. And here see the error is gone. And here we need not to use await because this 2b is not going to return as the promise. Right? See here it is just returning as the void. So that's why we are not using this await keyword here. If you will put await here, so you will be able to see this warning also that await has no effect on type of this expression, right? So let's remove it for now. And once I execute this particular test, so we would be able to see the response. But here we are getting this not found. We are getting this not found because this time this booking ID is not available. Let me again get the new booking ID. So this booking ID changes after some time. So let's get one new booking ID and we will put it there. Okay, this 25. So let's put this 25 on place of this 61. And once I again execute this particular test script, so this time we would be able to see the past test. Here we would be able to see this console log also. See, the detail related to this 25 booking ID is appearing here, and it got passed because we have got the status code as the 200. Now this time let's put the wrong status code. Here if I put this 205 as the status code and run this particular script, so see, we are able to get the error where the expected was the 205, but we received the 200, right? We purposefully failed this particular test. Here you can again change it to 200 only. As we are providing this assertion with the Playwright, same thing can be done with the help of Postman tool also if you are doing the manual testing. So here into the scripts, you can provide this particular part where we are just validating 200 as the status code, right? Previously, we have also discussed it. So here also, if you change it to 205 as the status code, which we want to receive, we have put this assertion from this snippet only, right? So if I send it, so we would be able to see one failure into the test results. Why? Because we were expecting 205 as the status code, but we have received 200 only. So this is the manual way. So here we are providing the assertion into the Postman, and same thing we are able to do with the help of the Playwright also. One more assertion which we can provide is related to this OK which we are receiving. So for that, you can use this expect. And here we need to provide this response. So in this case, resp1 dot, and here you need to put that OK. And after this expect, you need to put dot to be truthy. So we are expecting that this particular expression, which is resp1 dot OK. So we are expecting this OK from the response, and it should be true. So this particular expression is going to return as the true or false. So if it is not OK, we would be able to see the failure. Okay, let's again run the script. So see, we have got all passed, but let's put some wrong booking ID, right? In this case, it should get failed, right? Let's comment out this part so that we would be able to see this assertion. Otherwise, it will get failed at this assertion only, and it will not come to this point. Okay, again, let's execute this one. And this time, see, we have got the failure because it has not found the response, but it got failed at this console log only. So let's comment out this part also. So then only we would be able to see the failure for this assertion. So let's again execute it. And this time, see, this particular assertion got failed where it received the false, right? So from this response.ok, it received the false, but we were expecting it to be true. Now let's give the current booking ID. Let me take the latest booking ID from this response. Let's again send this request to get all the booking IDs which are latest. And let's take this 1870 as the booking ID. And here one more assertion which we can provide where we can validate the complete response. So what is the response which we are getting? So let me again enable this console log part. So we would be able to see the response, and then we will use that same response to validate our next assertion. Okay, so this is the response which we have got through this console log into the JSON format. And to provide the new assertion, what you need to give is expect. And here you need to provide this response. Okay, in this case, we are receiving the response in this response1 dot JSON parenthesis. Okay, and after the expect, you need to provide the method which is to match object. And inside this to match object, we need to provide the object which we want to match with this particular response which we are receiving into the JSON format. So here we have provided response1.json to receive it into the JSON format. And here to match it, we need to provide the JSON format which we are expecting. So here let's give the same response here. And let's comment out this part also. And once you execute the script, we would be able to see the passed result. Here I've got the error. Why? Because I forgot to put this await, right? Because this JSON method returns us the promise, and we need to put the await here. With the console log also we have put this await, right? But here we forgot to put. So let's put this await. And now this time once I execute it, we should be able to see the passed result. Don't forget to put the await, otherwise you will get failure in this case, right? So once we are receiving the response, we are converting it into the JSON format. And as this JSON method returns the promise, so that's why we have used this await here. And within this to match object, we just need to provide the object which we want to match. And this time, let's put one failure purposefully so that we would be able to see that how the failed assertion is going to look like. So let's take the latest booking ID. These booking IDs refreshes very frequently. So that's why I'm taking the booking ID. These are just the examples, right? In your projects, you will not have to change these values frequently, but here these are just for the examples, right? They are providing freely for the practice. So these booking IDs are changing frequently. So that's why I'm changing it. And here, let's see what is the response which we are going to get. So let's use the same booking ID again here with this particular request. And we are going to use this particular response. Okay. So expect await response one.json. And then we are going to use this toMatch object method. And here we need to provide this JSON object which we are expecting. And now let's run it. And this time we should be able to see the parsed. And again, as we are going to make one failure purposefully, so let's give this John1 as the first name and the last name as the Alan1. So this is the expected part, right? We are expecting to be the response like this, but we are going to get the different response, and this is going to be the failed assertion in this case. So see, we have got the failure. So this was the expected part, right? Which we were expecting for the first name to be John1 and the last name to be Alan1, but we have got this first name and last name. So purposefully we have given the long value to see the failed assertion. One more assertion which we can provide where we can validate the specific value. Let's say we want to validate this first name. Okay, for now let's correct this wrong part. Now let's give this new assertion. So here you need to give this expect, and then we need to provide the response JSON, right? So here you need to give this await response one dot JSON, and from this we want to read the value of this first name. So here let's put the parenthesis because this is the complete expression which is going to give us the response into the JSON format like this. And from this, as we want to read the first name, so here put the dot and then the first name. So let me copy it. Closing parenthesis of this expect. Or if you are finding it difficult to read, so what you can do, you can get the value from this response1.json into one variable. So let's do that. So here let's put this const and then JSON response. Any name you can put, right? It should be meaningful. And you can put this particular expression which is await response1.json. And now let's use this name. So here this name dot the first name. Here this const spelling is wrong. So now the error is gone. And then after the expect, you need to put this dot to equal method you need to use. And here you need to provide the correct name. So here let's provide this Josh. And here let me take the latest booking ID. So let's send this request again. And from here we can take the latest booking ID. Let's see the response of this booking ID first. So the Josh only is the first name. We have given it already. And here let's change this booking ID. And once you execute the script, so we would be able to see the parsed result in this case. See, our execution got parsed because we are able to see the first name as the Josh. So this is the console log which got printed. But here if you will change this value, right, let's purposefully fail this particular assertion. Here let's give the name as XYZ. And again, if I execute it, so in this case, we would be able to see the failed assertion at this point, right? Our expected was XYZ, which we have given purposefully, failed one, right? And we have received the Josh. So these are different assertions which we can provide to validate the response from the server. Let me remove this comment, right? So mainly there are these 4 assertions which you can use for any of the HTTP methods, right? For now, I have used it with this get method. You can use it with the post, put, delete, fetch, any of the HTTP method, right? Once we discuss the different methods into the upcoming videos, I would be using these assertions again. Now, one more example, I wanted to discuss it with you. So here we have one site which is demoblaze.com. And here let's open the developer tool. So right click, inspect. It will open the developer tool like this. You need to go to this network tab and let's hit this URL again. So here we would be able to see different requests which this particular site sent. So here we have this entries. Click on it. So you would be able to see that this is the request URL. Okay. And they have provided this get method. And in return, they have got this status code 200 OK. This is the response header which they have received. They means this particular site has received, which is the client, and this is the request header which they have sent. And here you can click onto this response, so you would be able to see all these response. So this is the object. Inside it, there is one key item, and its value is array of different objects which they have got. Okay, you can also click onto the preview, so you would be able to see this tree-like structure, right? So inside this items, they have different objects where they have different items. Okay, and if you will see onto the UI, so you would be able to find the same items here, right? So see, this first item is having the category as phone. Its name is Samsung Galaxy G6. So this is the item. Its price is 360. So that's what is appearing onto the UI. So in this case, what is happening? This client, which is demoblaze.com, has sent one HTTP request to get or retrieve all the information related to these items. So they have sent this particular HTTP request, okay, which is get, and in return they are getting this status code as 200 okay with this particular response, where they have got different items, where we are able to see the category, right, which is phone, and they have ID also. Onto the UI, we are able to see the title of the phone and the price of the phone. They are also getting this image URL, and this image they are showing it onto the UI with the help of this particular value. So they are using this particular response to show the items onto the UI. If you will scroll down, so there's second item, right? Into the preview also, you would be able to see into the tree-like structure. So this is the second item, where the title is Nokia Lumia 1520. Its price is 820. Its image is here, and this description is also here. So the same values, they are using it here. So these values are not hard-coded. They are getting it with the help of APIs, and then they are showing it onto the UI. Similarly, the third item would also be there. So see, Nexus 6 is appearing with the price, details, and the image. They have various items which they are getting from this particular response only. And why I'm telling this particular example to you? So let's say in your projects also, you are using some of the APIs to fetch data from any third-party server or from your DB only. So what you can do, you can perform these API calls to retrieve the information, and then you can validate this particular response with your UI. So these API informations you can get from your developers. Into the network tab, you would also be able to see. But if you need any specific information, you can go to the developer to get the specific document. They will provide you one written document where you would be having all the information related to the UI, right? You can get a handwritten document with the specific base URL, path parameter, query parameter, body, header, right? The curl command. In some cases, they may be also be providing this Swagger URL, where you would be having all the details related to the APIs, right? What is the base URL? What is the path parameter, resource, query parameter? All the details you would be able to see here onto the Swagger. So it depends on to the projects, what kind of document you are getting. In some cases, you must be getting this doc file only where they have written all these information, right? And you can use those informations. For now, let's see this particular example. So here what we will do, we will read data from this particular get request. So here we have got this base URL with the resource. So from the headers tab, you can take this request URL. Let's create one more test here. I'm covering this particular example so that you would be able to correlate that how you can validate the API with the UI, right? Till now, what we have just discussed, we have just validated the API response. But now we are going to validate API response against the UI. So let's give the title as API with UI verification. Any title you can give. And put the comma. And here we are going to use this anonymous function. Arrow symbol, curly braces. And here we are going to use this request fixture, right? And here let's use that base URL. So await. Here we need to provide this request inside the curly braces, right? So request dot get method we need to use. Okay, here we are able to see this get as the request method, right? And then you can pass this particular base URL as the string with this resource entries, right? And here let's console log this particular response for now, so that we would be able to validate that we are getting the correct response. So here let's save the response inside one variable. So resp2 equals to And here let's console log this resp2 JSON response. So await resp2 dot JSON. And once I execute this particular script, we would be able to see all the entries, right? So all the phones or tablet details are appearing here. And here one more thing which we can do, we can try to fetch the specific response from here. So let's first save the response into the separate constant. So const JSON response 2 equals to this expression await resp2 dot JSON, which is going to give us the response into the JSON format. And then let's use this variable name. So JSON response 2 dot, and in this response, we are getting this items as the key. Okay. So let's use this items after this dot, and we need to get the first item. So here we can give the index number as we are getting items value inside the array, right? So this is the array of objects where we are getting information related to the each item as the different object. Okay. So let's use the 0th index to get the value of this item. And once I again execute the script, so we are going to get only one object here, right? See, and let's say if you just want to get the title of this item, so here you can put this dot title and run it. So this time we have just got this title only. Now we have done this, but what we are going to do with this information? So what we can do, we can validate this value which we have received from the API against the UI. And how we can do that? So for that, you'll have to open this particular URL, right, into the browser. So for that, we will have to use the page fixture in this case. So this is the basic UI thing which I'm going to do. So we have given this page fixture, and now I'm going to use this page fixture. So await page.goto to open this particular link, right? And this link I want to open, which is demoblaze.com. So here provide it as the string. And once this particular link is open, I want to validate the title of this first item against the API response. So through the API response, we are fetching the title of the first item here. We are using 0 because from the 0th index of the array, we would get the first item. Now let's find the locator for this element. So let me use the pick locator for this thing. So click onto the pick locator here. And here I can look for this particular link. And once I mouse over onto this particular item, I would be able to see the locator for that. Click on it, go to the VS Code, hit enter to copy the generated locator. And here I can use this page dot, and then I can paste the generated locator for the first card's title. And onto this locator, I want to perform the assertion where I want to check that title of this link is matching with the API response. So here I can use this expect, and then here I can pass this locator. And here I would use the method which is to have text. And then I want to match the text of this locator with the API response. Okay, so this is the API response which I am getting. And here from that API response, I am getting this first item using 0th index dot title. Okay, so I will copy this thing, and here I will paste it inside this to have text. So we saw that we are getting first item from the API as Samsung Galaxy S6. And as we have used this dot to have text method, so this method returns us the promise. So that's why we will have to use this await keyword in front of this assertion. And now once I execute the script, so it should get passed because the text which we are going to get from this API response is Samsung Galaxy S6, and it will match with the title of the first card, which is same Samsung Galaxy S6. Let me execute the script. And see, it is also printing the same name because we have used this console log and we have got the passed result. So this is just an example where we are able to validate the API response against the UI. And in your case, you can also validate any API response against the UI by this way. And that's it for this particular video. Let me give you the quick recap. So here we saw why API testing is crucial for ensuring the smooth functioning and overall quality of the web application. A GET call is the HTTP request method used to retrieve data from the server. We also saw that how we can read the API document which we receive from the development team. We can get the document into this proper formatting, or It can be any handwritten document also where all these informations are available. In some cases, we can also get these type of curl command, which we can directly use into the Postman tool to import that particular call. In some projects, we also get this kind of Swagger UI with all the API details. So it depends project to project that how you are getting all the API informations for the testing. Then we saw that how we can install the Postman from their official website. And here into the Postman, there are different components which are used for performing the API testing manually. From here, we can select all the HTTP methods. Here we can provide the base URL with the resources and the path param. In the tool, they have also provided the separate tabs to provide the query parameter, headers, authorization, the body. Here we can also provide some scripts to perform some of the assertions. So here if you will scroll, you will be able to see some of the snippets which we can use to provide different assertion. And once we send any HTTP request, we get the response under this response section. So here like this, we would be able to see the body of the response. We would also be able to see the header which we received from the response. And here we can check all the test results which we have got from these checks. Here we can also see that what is the status code we are getting, what time this request took, and what is the size of it. So you can enter all these details manually, or you can also use that curl command. So here you can click onto the import and then you can use that curl command to get all the details automatically here under these fields. Apart from that, we also saw that how we can perform basic get call using this request fixture, where we can use this request.get method, and inside the get method we can pass the base URL with the resource and the parameter as the first argument, and then we would be able to retrieve the information from it. And here also we have different ways to pass the base URL. So in one way we can directly pass the base URL with this get method. In second way, we can pass the base URL by using this new context inside the test. Into the third way, we can provide the base URL with this before all using the new context only. So we import the request from the Playwright test module, and here we use this request.newContext to provide the base URL like this. And then we can use this request context to perform any HTTP method. Here we performed the get method. And into the fourth way, we can directly provide this base URL at the global level into this playwright config.ts file. Under the defined config, we have this use key, and inside this object of the use key, you need to provide the base URL as the key and its value as the string. And in similar way, we can also provide the header to any HTTP method. So into the first way, we can directly provide header with the get method. So as the second argument, we can use this header as the key and its value would be the object where we can pass the key value pair for the different headers. And into the second way, we can use this new context to provide this extra HTTP headers as the key, and then its value will be object with the key value pair of different headers. Into the third way, we have again used this new context, but this time we have used it inside the before all hook, where we have provided the same header by using this extra HTTP headers as the key and its value as the object with different key value pair. And at the global level also, we can provide the same header, where inside this defined config of the playwright.config.ts, we need to provide this extra HTTP headers inside the use keys value. And here you can provide n number of headers like this. Apart from this, we also saw the different examples where we just provided the simple base URL with the resource. And into the next example, we have provided the base URL with the resource. And after that, we have provided the path parameter. Here we also saw that how we can pass the query parameter within the endpoint, or separately we can also provide these query parameters where we will have to provide the second argument as the object, and inside that object params would be the key and its value is going to be the object, where we can provide different query parameters key and its value. And then we saw that how we can perform different assertions onto the response which we have got from the get call. So here you can perform the assertion to validate the status code. You can also validate if the response was okay or not. We saw that we can also use this toObject method to validate the JSON response from the get call with the expected data. We can also validate the specific item of the JSON response like this. And then at the end, we also saw an example where we validated the API response against the UI. So you can perform these type of testing also in your projects. And that's it from my end. Into my upcoming videos, we would be learning about many more concepts about the API testing. So stay tuned. You can click onto this first card to go to the next video. You can click onto the second card to access the whole Playwright tutorial playlist. And stay tuned for my upcoming videos. If you have any comments, questions, or doubts, you can let me know into the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Have a great day.